love and give me shelter, shelter. Simple life, it's all we want to live. Give me food, give me clothes, give me love and give me shelter, shelter. Yeah.
So welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the We Too podcast. Tonight or today we have with us in studio a special guest joining us. He's no other but Ariezz Adriano, founder and CEO of Lib Vibes Only, LVO. LVO is more than a clothing brand. It's a cultural movement built to represent Liberian identity with pride, intention, and clarity. Ariezz recently launched the LVO podcast, the official voice of the brand, creating a platform where Liberians across the diaspora and back home can feel bold, loud, expressive, and at home. No dilution and no spider story. I always love to hear that. Today, we are talking about identity, culture, mindset, and what it's really, or what it really means to build something bigger than product. Welcome to our podcast. Again, I'll bring to the forefront, our guests. And if you have just tuned in, I ask that you begin to share the live. So let me take this time now to bring our guests to the platform. Welcome to the show, Ariezz. It's great to have you today. I guess the floor is yours. It's been a minute. What you been up to, man?
Man, we've been around, man. Like I like to say, God dead,
Yeah.
But we've been out there doing what we do. But thanks for having me on, man. Like you said, it's been a minute. I think it's been like a year.
Yeah,
at least like a year since I last came on your platform.
Yeah.
But thanks for having me on again, man. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, I know when you came, it was all different. Now that you're here, I guess the discussion will be a little bit more intense because there's some transition that you have made, and so I'm just excited to kind of take a little bit a deep dive into it tonight. So I know you're ready for it. You're ready to fill us in with this. Not only it seems like it's been a whole lot going on with not only the brand, but also now you're also now heavily involved with the podcast. I don't even know how you do it, bro. Sometimes I wonder, Yeah. But anyways, let's get into the podcast here tonight. Again, ladies and gentlemen, it's good to have with us in the studio for a very long time. He was here sometime, I believe, if not early last year, I would say maybe the end of December 2024. What do you think? You think it was sometime last year?
Yeah, I think it's coming up to at least like 8 or 9 months now.
Okay.
Or probably more. No, it has to be more than that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I didn't check that before coming on, but yeah, it has to be at least a year.
Okay. All right. So let's get right into it because let's talk about first and foremost what I want us to kind of take a little bit, I'll say, maybe not a deep dive into. I want us to discuss identity, discipline, and global perspective as it relates to not only the brand, but also the podcast. If we can put in context, the podcast pretty much is more of the voice of the brand. Would you say that?
Yeah, I think that's a fair description. The podcast rather came into existence, after the realization that, we're trying to build more than a clothing brand, but we're trying to build a community, and we needed to be louder, not only through, apparels, but, as many forms as we could. And podcast is a long form of content, as compared to like regular social media, where you may get a viral content that, is viral for a few days, or a few hours, and then it's going by quickly as compared to a content form like a podcast where you can really go in detail. And the whole intent of that was to really bring people behind the brand, to speak in full sentences, I like to say, and give people an understanding of what the brand was about, where it was coming from, what our designs were about, what our messaging was about, what the direction was, and ultimately build this community that that felt like home. That regardless of where you were, whether at home in the diaspora or wherever you were, you could wear something authentic, something that made you feel proud, and
Yeah,
also you could also appear on, have the opportunity to appear on a platform that you wouldn't be judged for your accent or you know for your identity or your culture or anything like that. So
great. I think you said a whole lot, and so with that being said, right? Let's circle back to something that I want to talk about because I think what you just did here, you give the community a little bit of an understanding of what the brand is about, But let's get into let's say, for example, someone who just hearing about the brand for the first time and wanted to know a little bit more. What is LIB Vibes Only, and what problem were you trying to actually solve that really prompted the brand?
yeah, that's a layer question, but I think for starters, LVO, for short, or LIB Vibes Only, it's a streetwear and a Liberian streetwear and lifestyle clothing brand. But we seek to do more than just sell clothes. We seek to build a community of like-minded individuals, that understand the power of identity. As far as the problems or issues we're trying to solve, uh, I think you can rather put them into two categories. And you being a Liberian, you probably can attest to this. But one, the brand is trying to address the issue of poor identity, in our clothing industry, poor identity and representation, and also secondly, we're trying to take the Liberian identity global. But identity was represented poorly. Our culture was represented poorly in our apparels, but also poor quality. I've always had conversations with people that will buy like merch or clothing items from some of our Liberian designers, and they were not very impressed with the quality or the durability of the item. So, I mean, to bring it all together, the brand is really trying to push the Liberian identity, global, through providing high quality, and fashionable garment, that can be worn with intention and proudly. And also creating these environments like the podcast and some of the events and stuff that we set up to create this environment that Liberians, especially in the diaspora, can come together and feel like home.
Ariezz, thank you very much. One thing I keep hearing you saying, you keep talking about identity, and then you circle to quality. And I know the truth is, we when it comes to Liberians, we are one people who, we quickly adapt. Most time we don't value what we have. So with that being said, what would you say? Who is LVO really for, and why does it matter in today's Liberian culture and diaspora?
I think Elville is for several kind of people, right? So predominantly it's for Liberians, but it's also more especially for Liberians who understand uh, the power of identity, Liberians who are proud um, in their culture, their heritage, where they're from, who they are. Um, it's also for really everybody and anybody out there that really, you know, grasp the concept of, identity, that your identity is really your superpower, it's not something to shy away from, so people that embodies the mindset of, no spot of story, which we get talk about in a little bit, minding my business, some of those taglines that the brand has become popular for, so anybody that really understands and really live that, the brand is for them too, you know.
Perfect. Uh, it's not really limited to only Liberians in Liberia and the diaspora. So,
No, I mean, to be honest, a part of it is how I see, so in my previous life, I travel a lot, and I found myself wearing, Bob Marley t-shirt, after a trip to Jamaica or some, or hoodie that had the Parliament of Belgium on it because I was in, Belgium, and I probably bought those clothing items because maybe my experience there was something about it that resonated with me, something I want to identify with or something. So, you know, uh, the whole concept of the brand, one of the driving, factors in the brand is that I'm hoping for this day that, anybody will wear a LVO t-shirt for the fact that they are either Liberian or there's something about Liberia that resonates with them that they want to identify with.
that's a great way to put it. That's good. Now, as you were talking, again, we circle back to identity, quality, and all of that. But one thing that stood out, Liberians, we have all these different scenes. Talk about the nose part of the story. Somebody always said, "Money, my business." Walk us through the story behind no spot of story and money, my business.
Yeah, I mean, um, I'm happy you asked that question because, and I'm gonna answer the question, but before I get into that, uh, I've seen, ever since the brand came into existence, and ever since those particular designs were introduced, people really like them. I see them repeated, but many times I'm not quite sure if they're clear on where the message is coming from, at least from the brand's perspective. So I'm glad you asked that question. And we'll take it one by one at a time. So no spotter story. So if you're a Liberian, uh, especially if you grew up in Liberia, or you grew up in a Liberian household in wherever part of the world, you more than likely as a child was exposed to what Liberians call spider stories, which are like these, folklores or folk tales that Pin Spotter as his, trickster, this character who will use enemies in the book, whether it's lies, being fake, whatever he had to do to get ahead. And then, I guess as we grew older, or maybe it's always been that, but with time, it seemed like that meaning had evolved into we should ready domains, or it's always been, um, but to evolve into meanings like, not being fake. Uh, I think that the right way to look at it is spotter story and not no spotter story. So no, so to understand the whole concept of no spotter story, you should understand spider story, which is what I was trying to explain earlier. So, so spider story itself, evolve into, complication, lies, fakeness, and all this kind of stuff. So as we're coming up with designs, that we're hoping to resonate with the culture. It occurred to me that Spider's story was something that pretty much every Liberian could relate to. But I wanted to leverage the morals, that came with the Spider story as a message for the culture, which is, where the no comes in. So no spider story. So if spider story itself means fakeness, lies, corruption, and all of this, then no spider story means that uh you're not with those things. So the hope is that people get the message, because we talk about identity all the time, but I believe to even clearly understand your identity, you have to deal with reality. You have to cut out what I call the spotter stories, all those lies you've been telling yourself, all the fakeness, all that. So, the clothing design with no spotter story is really meant to be like this shield, that people wear to either warn, that they're not playing games, like they're all about their business, you know, uh, so the other tag, which is minding my business, I think they both like kind of go hand in hand, because usually when you cut out the noise, which is you cut out the spotter story, all that, it means you start to turn inward, and you start to focus on your own stuff, things that matters, priorities, and stuff like that. So again, in the same line, the minding my business is meant to be one, as a reminder, not only as, there's uh design that bring back this nostalgic feeling of your childhood, but also as a constant reminder that, either to get ahead or to be successful, at anything, you have to stay focused, which maybe Liberians would say mind your business, So yeah, and I mean, uh, we do have that. We have other popular lines like "Yeah, nah." One of my uh, personal favorite is "Made in Liberia" because that has multiple meanings. So "Made in Liberia" is like affirmation that, hey, I was made in Liberia. I was born in Liberia. I am from Liberia. You know, but one part of it, and I hope that eventually, people that have been following the brand, that like the brand, and I've even paused some of these pieces they can understand. Uh, is that I personally feel that if I'm gonna publicly claim that I was made in Liberia, that uh, comes with a level of responsibility. You know, so what I'm trying to say is that if you are made in Liberia, then and now you're made in Liberia, but you can probably wear it on a clothing item and tell the world, then you should be acting responsible to put the country in the right light. For me, that is like saying that I understand that anything I do, how I carry myself, how I show up, how I present myself, is a direct representation of not only me, but where I say I'm from. So all of these, taglines that are used in the brand, they're carefully selected, because it means it should mean more, than just the clothes.
Wow, wow. I
Yeah.
mean, your explanation of Aries was power packed, and there was a lot of content. I think that those who are wearing the brand should begin to reflect that you are not only wearing uh, an apparel, you're not only wearing clothing, but you're carrying a mindset. We can use the brand as a, one time I think you posted something and I was talking about, I like how you went into the anatomy. Usually we look at the physiology, what's outside, but this is something more than just clothing that you're wearing. You're carrying identity, you're carrying a mindset. You talk about no spider story is that is beyond just no, it's spider story, telling somebody that look, when we were growing up, when we talk about spider story had no end. There was some people would come with, like you said, the lies and all of that. So the way you kind of broke it down, hopefully your fans, customers now who are coming to pick up the brand, I hope you not only, following just a brand, we're talking about a whole country, a whole demographic, a whole people, a whole culture. That's how I just, and as you were talking, I was trying to, follow through, and those are some of the things that I kind of, so I want to thank you very much for, not only creating something that we can wear around or walk with facade, but also something that speaks to our conscience, that we carry something. One thing I think we take for granted, Liberia goes way back. The first Black Republic on the continent. So I don't take it for granted. Something I would like us to talk about, Ariezz. I know uh, maybe we should be able to talk about it as we move a little bit further into the interview. But something I want to ask you here as we you know take a little bit more deep dive into the how did those lessons, you talk about the low spot story, the this, that, and the other, those lessons that you now that you bring into your how some of the lessons, how did it really change the way you represent Liberia, you as the founder and visionary of the vision?
Um, so if I'm understanding the question right, you are asking what my experiences.
Yeah. Okay, your experiences with the whole mindset thing, the no spider story. I told you went into it a little bit deeper. Maybe I can read. Let me frame the question or shift it a little bit. How does that standard, right?
Yeah,
Uh, the standard of the no spider story, minding my business. I think you mentioned something else because you have several of them. I think the one that really sometimes I easily get. Yeah, no, was another one. Took my nose by the story, I'm minding my business. There's a fourth one that
things happening.
things happening exactly. So like I say, is a mindset. It's a mindset that you are carrying there. So how does it's more like that particular style? How does it influence your decision, especially when short courts or pressures show up? Because it's no part of the story, people thinking, okay, then on the flip side, minding my business, meaning that always trying to be focused. So all those different slings, how those slings, how do they really influence your your creativity?
I mean, I would think that like some of the morals from those slangs, have impacted, how I operate. But I think since I came to the realization that, identity was power, um, I evolved into this mindset of, you know, the no spotter story, and, staying focused and minding your business and all that kind of stuff. Uh, so I've always, had that kind of mindset of, but I think it's even more critical uh, for the audience, my target audience, which is Liberians, right? I often think of it this way: Liberia is, I think we're about to be what 179 years, you
Yeah,
know,
78, eh? Oh, it's 79. Yeah, you're right.
179
79.
years. So I think we're about to be 179,
Yeah.
and then especially someone like me who's been in the diaspora for a while and been, away from the country for a bit, but I know the history of the country, and then I compare with, other countries like our neighbors, less than a century old, and you know, speeding up to, 2 century, and there's really no, comparison. I mean, so in so many, uh, facet of the country. So it makes me think like, what's there to be, really be excited about? What's there to really be happy about? So uh, that being said, I really felt like, my people needed to, turn down the noise a little, cut out the uh trying to be like, and really go back to the table and be like, yo, who are we as a group of people, and uh, what do we want, and where are we going? And, this is very personal to me, and it's everything that drives the brand. And this is one of the reasons, I like coming on your podcast, and even off air, we talk a lot about, these kind of things, but your platform is closely aligned, with all of this. When you talk about like the blueprint, and all that, I think it speaks to the same question of that identity question, so yeah, everything we do here, is driven by that.
So let me ask you one question. I know I'll probably be off a little bit. The podcast was called Rediscover Liberia, something along those lines. And now we have the podcast name, uh, the LV or LIB Vibes podcast. We can say that. What's the rationale behind it? Walk us through.
Well, I mean, first off, those were two different projects. They did uh, have, I would say, like similar mission and all that, but they were two different projects. So when I first started the clothing, started all of this LIB Vibes Only, you know, because of the overall mention of the brand, which was, to help in, finding this defined, national identity of the country, and, sharing it globally through fashion, apparels, and events and experiences. Um, I um I kind of lost my thought or whatever.
A little bit. That
Yeah, I
way,
lost
talking about why the transition from rediscover
yeah,
Liberia.
yeah. So yeah, so because of that, overarching, mention, I thought that I needed an extended voice, like a podcast. So uh, when I first started it, it was called Rediscovering Liberia, which I think, as a group of people, if we're to go back and ask or answer that question of who we are as a group of people, like what's our identity, it's almost like rediscovering ourselves. So that was the intent behind all of that. But that podcast had a very political tone, which um, I wasn't very comfortable with because I'm not a politician,
Yes, man.
but also on a personal level, it was pretty difficult to sustain because, as you know, a lot of the stuff that uh, is happening is done like with a very skeleton crew. In most cases, mostly me, so having that tone and still trying to push the clothing brand was a little, there was a conflict of interest, and also it was just overwhelming because they were not parallel, for lack of words, so it's like I was chasing down a whole different lead, on a whole different category on news or story. And then I had to pivot and come and focus on clothes and all that. So, yeah, all that was overwhelming. So I had to take a break from that and spend some time, and, just processing it. Uh, and the idea came up that, hey, we could still do the podcast, but do something that was still going to provide the platform for, Liberians both in the diaspora and at home could come on and feel at home, but stay away from politics, but address, fashion, cultural issues, social issues, and stuff like that.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. So
Oh.
you see, we're going back and forth, but let's pivot back to the clothing brand. Because I know a lot of people see LVO as a clothing brand, but I see here that you are somewhat building an ecosystem. Can you break down the full vision, brand, platform, and experiences?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times, man, like if you look around, most of the successful, entities, organizations, uh, they become successful by building ecosystems, by building multiple layers
Would you
that.
define what an ecosystem is for our ordinary Oman
So
watchman?
ecosystem is just pretty much different layers of I'm paraphrasing, but different layers of you could say platforms or different layers of agencies that perpetuate the same message, So I think a good example of an ecosystem could be, and just to break it down all the way, I'm a car dealer, so I have a dealership where I sell cars, but I also open a mechanic shop where I service the cars, and I also open a parts store where I sell parts. Uh, so that's kind of an ecosystem because all of those three different entities are geared towards serving the same purpose. That's like maybe the most simple way I could. So in the case of LVO, again, our mission is to, help in defining or finding this defined, Liberian identity and also celebrate it globally. So to do that, the first agent we use is the apparels, the clothes that, that's wearing your identity proudly, and then I like to call them pillars. That's the first pillar. The second pillar is the media. We started with the podcast, the LVO podcast, that can be found on YouTube on the LVO channel on YouTube. But that is where we use long form content and create this platform that librarians from all around the world, back home included, can come on and feel at home, and it's also the space where the brand can make its message clearer, in longer form messages or content. And then the next pillar is community. So we try to build a community of like-minded people, people that like the brand, people that are proud to be Liberians, people that don't mind telling the world they are Liberians and all that. So we do have a WhatsApp group. I think there's 130 something plus people in there.
Big community.
Um, yeah, so we have that. The other way we try to push this agenda is through events and experiences. So if you've been following the brand, you will have seen that over the last year we went to many different states to introduce the brand to the community.
Yep.
But doing those things was not only about introducing the brand to the community, but it was also about creating these spaces again for Liberians to come together, feel Liberian, be Liberian, and have something to be proud about, while doing all of that. Um, One other pillar, that the brand, is operating with. I like to call that opportunities. So through the year, since we started, we've worked with several different people. Some Liberian artists, personalities, and all that. We did projects with them. You know, um, I think all of that was geared towards uh, magnifying these people that we work with because they were still doing or they are doing what the same thing that the brand hopes to do, take the Liberian identity or culture global. um so yeah, that's the ecosystem we're trying to build. So you can not only wear the message in high quality garment, but you can also follow the brand. You can also be part of the conversations through the podcast. You can also be part of the community, and follow the social happenings. uh or you could appear to our events or pop-ups, and get to link up with other Liberians And this is especially important and crucial in uh, some of the states that the Liberians are not as together or densely populated, like say Philadelphia or Minnesota. There's some states where so when we do events and stuff like that, usually it's an opportunity for Liberians to
Come
link
together.
up and all that, which I really like saying.
Wow, that's powerful. So
Yeah.
if you have Tony, tonight we have with us our own, the illustrious, incomparable CEO and founder of LIB, LVO, LIB Vibes Only. You've seen the brand around, you've worn it, but this is not only an apparel that you're wearing. You're talking or listening. We're listening to the founder, and we see how profound he is in how he's what I mean, espousing what the brand is all about. So this is not only clothing line you're carrying just to look good, but at the same time, mentally we're talking about cultural and all that. So if you're tuning, as we kind of pretty much with maybe about several minutes into concluding the live now. Yes, share the live with as many people as possible, and yeah, because this is power packed. But I have a follow up question for you, and you talk about how crucial it is for us Liberians, to kind of come together. I mean, under this brand, some of the messages that you pretty much been preaching here is the push for a Liberian culture or our identity to be edified. Why is it crucial? Because why is it so crucial now for Liberians to build platforms that are strategically focused on cultural building and not just trends? Because a lot of times we see the content that we're creating, we're following um people, or we create these platforms so that people will follow, or we have more following and things like that. So the question to you again, let me put it, why is it crucial for Liberians to build cultural platforms, not trends, and what role does LVO wants to play in that particular aspect?
Yeah, I don't know, man. If you look around, like, and I may catch flack for this, but I'm pretty sure a lot of people get attest to this. It almost seems as if that when it comes to the Liberian culture and our cultural moments are usually just that, it's like a moment, and I believe that happens and it's continuing to happen because uh, we haven't spent time building structures and systems around our culture. For those of us that's traveled, had the opportunity to travel the world, we see how other cultures or other countries leverage their culture to even make money out of it. And all of this, the more I think of it, it always has led me to the belief that it comes down to what I've been saying from the very top of this conversation, which is I think there is an identity issue out here and here. I think as a group of people, we really need to relook at that conversation, because and to come back to your question, man, like, and not to get off philosophical or everything, man, but everything starts with the name, you know, which is identity. You have to identify something. And like what I said, not to get philosophical, bro, even demons, bro, like the even get rid of demons like you get rid of them by identifying them by their name, bro.
True,
So
true.
you know, this is the same reason why, when you identify yourself as an athlete, you do things that athlete do. If you identify yourself as a rich person, you carry yourself and do things that rich people do. So I think a lot of confusion and this circular motion is because we may have had it some point in our history, but it seemed like for a long time in the history, we haven't been clear, clear about that. Identity is power, bro. It's the fuel for everything. When you understand who you are, it informs how you move, how you show up, how you carry yourself, how you represent. So Elvia wants to be part of the process of coming up with that defined identity. Until that is defined, we will use what we know, what we grew up with, and all that to keep us together. We can rally around, stuff like that. Yeah.
Wow, that's deep. That's really powerful. And I mean, again, man, this is the guy we should be listening to. He's not only uh, selling clothes, or he's not only into fashion, but he's creating a brand to edify the Liberian culture and to push our identity to a whole another level. You really got me thinking, because sometimes, Aries, I tell you the truth, I get very, very philosophical myself, and I'm really glad that you're able to come up here. I see how much work you have been putting to not only the brand, but just in the designs and things like that. One question I want to ask you as we close here, it's not the last question, but I think this question is very important. On my podcast, I had a show, and it was more of a title, and I want you to really, maybe give me a perspective. Why do we, as Liberians, and I think is an African thing, and it goes back to identity. Why do we nickel and dime our own, where we spend million on Louis Vuitton, on Gucci, on Prada, and I mean, to name a few? What do you think is the problem? Now that you have talked about identity, walk us through.
So the question is, why do we like
Nickel,
minimize? So
exactly. Why
why do
are
we
we nickel and
minimize?
dime? What's the problem? You are into the industry. You creating brands. You talk about quality. We know quality is basically what you pay for. And but the person behind the production or the brand may be thinking about that. This is what I want for the people. Because not only what you pay for is what you get. So the question now is, why do we, again, why we nickel and that we want to pay less for the quality that you're giving us quality. And not only you, but as a businessman, a brand creator, and all that kind of stuff. What would you say? Why do we don't really value our own, but we tend to value other people's brand?
I think that's a like super excellent question, bro. But the answer can only be subjective. I think about that a lot, bro. I think uh, in season one of the LVO podcast, uh, I want to think is either see episode 3 or 4. I even talk a little bit about that. I'm not sure, man. Like it probably has it probably goes all the way back to our history. Like I'm not quite sure why we minimize. Maybe it's to fit in. Maybe it's to get by. I don't know, but I do know that that characteristic has its own role to play in some of the effects, some of the realities of the country right now. But I really don't know where it comes from, man.
Would you say is due to a colonized mindset, where we in fact we as a people have been taught to devaluate ourselves. You're talking about identity. We carry ourselves in an inferior way. We don't think highly of ourselves. Just going back to identity. So would you say that that's you know it's kind of attributed to where we come from and
Yeah,
who we
I,
think.
I think I can agree. I mean, thinking of it, yeah, it can only mean that, because let's put it this way, like um, we all have to ourselves that regardless of what, we probably would not do something, and the reason we do that is because we have a picture of ourselves in our mind that you know of this, I see myself this way and I just cannot scoop this low, or I cannot do something that whatever it is, so I think it still goes back to identity, man. I think uh like you hear in some motivational speeches where people tell you, hey, did you know you're king, did you know, you are value. And maybe it's because, again, we're not clear on our identity. So maybe we're not sure of our value. I mean, that's all I can think. Like, but if you know that you're king and you're princes and queens and princesses, you will act like king, queens, and princesses. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it can only mean like you probably not sure of who you are. And it's sad because sometimes some of the behavior that our fellow countrymen portray sometimes is like behaviors of like a beggar, or and it's like, is this how you see yourself, like as a beggar? Because if you don't see yourself as a beggar, you're not gonna do the things that beggar does. So to
True.
me, it really starts there, so.
Yeah. It's said in the Bible that so as a man think of himself. I'm not going to say of a brother. So is he. So the way we see ourselves, and I think uh, that might be one of the major reasons why, because we see ourselves less, and so definitely, and we that image too. When I see you, I also don't value you, but I see the other man. You know what I mean? Yeah, I'm spending all this and that. But we're about 40 some more minutes, almost an hour into the show, so we wrap up here. I want to ask you this question. Since launching the LVO podcast, what is the message you want every Liberian, home and abroad, to walk away with?
Wow. There are many messages, man, but I think if I were to sum it all up, I think the message is that we should know that our identity uh, is our power, is our superpower, is the fuel uh, that will get us started, is the fuel that's gonna get us going. So I'm hoping through the clothes I design, through the messages I'm trying to push, through the platforms and events and stuff I'm associated with, that we can, with time, you know, uh, uh, educate the community that we really don't have time, bro. Like there should be no time for spotter story right now because we
Hmm.
like 179 years. We really need to go back to that drawing board, and ask these questions: who we are, what we want, where do we, where we going, because the people that are clear on who they are, uh, they move differently, they move powerfully, bro. Like, and everything we see seems like, we're just going around like this. And they get what I mean, like, we're probably not clear on where we're going, you know.
Wow, wow, wow! What a powerful. I mean, tonight was power pack. It was a great conversation to have you on the show. I don't take you for granted. I know how you're very critical with some of my my topics, and even before I present, we will come behind the scenes. So I'm not even surprised that you create something of such a nature. It was said by Steve Jobs, delivering a commencement address. He said, "Here's to the crazy ones, uh, the round pigs in the square holes, the one who they see the word different. They're not fond of the rules. You can quote them, you can ignore them, but the one thing you can do, excuse me, is that you cannot ignore them. So there's no way that we can ignore you. I'm really excited to have you on the show, and I would take this time just to ask you for your closing remark, and then we'll go ahead. We will try to close the show again. I want to thank you for pulling up and for the work you are doing to challenge mindsets and to raise standards through LIB Vibes Only. And to our listeners, whether you are in Liberia, anywhere in the diaspora, this episode is a reminder that culture doesn't move by accident. It moves when people decide to build with intention. Thank you again for coming. What will be your parting statement?
Yeah, man. Thanks again for having me, man.
As always.
Yeah, it's been a minute. As you know, after I decided to take a break with the Rediscover Liberia podcast. I was not in front of the camera for a while, so
Yeah.
it was a little bit of a curve there again. But thanks again for having me, and thanks again for the wonderful job you do with your platform, the topics you are attacking, the moves you are making, the guests you are bringing on. Uh, Really wonderful things for our community and the country at large. So I'm very grateful to be here. And my parting message would be like I've said through, identity is our superpower. It's about time that we cut out the noise, we cut out the spotter story, we focus on the priorities, and uh, I believe for on a national level, I think that priority should be relooking at our identity. But here at the brand, that priority for us is continuing, to dig into the Liberian culture, find, those messages, those lessons that, you know, we grew up with that strengthen us as a group of people that kept us going, and amplify that, and take our the culture global through apparels and other things that we have in the pipeline.
Wow,
So
wow, man. Thank you so
yeah,
much for coming. And Aries, look forward. I know off the record, it's not going to be easy this season. I'm pretty sure you're bringing uh, something new. I don't know what to expect, I know it's cold, so you haven't been on the road, but we look forward to newer apparels, newer designs, and more of these conversations. And I think yes, tonight is people who just normally would come across the illustrious Ariezz and would think that, oh, you know what? Oh yeah, he's selling clothes. But I think you're a man on a mission. I already know. So yes.
No, but we should just add there though that so we did talk about the podcast a little bit. You can find that on YouTube on the LVO channel, and the podcast is the LVO podcast. But I also wanted to just quickly add that the clothing brand website is live. It's been live since January 16. So you can go on there. We're shipping all across the United States. So you can go on there and, you know, shop your favorite pieces and see what's coming up.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank all of you, our ardent followers, those of you who are watching us live. Tonight's topic, that was something I even mentioned throughout the entirety of the live tonight. Identity is power, building Lib Vibes Only beyond the brand. We heard it for ourselves, and thank you very much for coming. This is how we're going to conclude this session. I look forward to seeing you again. Have a good night, Mr. Ariezz Adriano.
Thanks, man.
All right. So, yeah, to our viewers tonight, if this conversation resonated with you, make sure that you support, share, and stay tapped. And follow We to Our Liberians movement for more conversation that matter. And we'll catch up on the next episode. Peace and blessing. I have been your host, as usual, C.A.T. Williams. It's been a pleasure having you. I look forward to seeing you guys. Check us out here, hopefully next Wednesday, same time, same place. It was great sharing time and space with you. Have a good night, and I look forward to talking to you guys later. God bless. Bye for now.
It's all we want to live. Give me food, give me clothes, give me love, and give me shelter.